Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you the best settings to use on your flash for macro photography. Before I dive into all the settings, I'll quickly mention what equipment I use for macro photography. I shoot on the OM System OM1, Zuiko 90mm macro, Godox V860 Mark III and Cygnus-Tech diffuser. I use the Godox V860 Mark III because it's really powerful and can shoot hundreds of shots without buffering. The reason this flash is so powerful and can fire so many shots is because of the battery. It uses a lithium-ion battery, so if you are looking for a flash, I'd highly recommend getting a flash with a lithium-ion battery. I've used both the Godox V350 and the Godox V860 Mark III, and these are two great options for macro photography. If you want a small and lightweight setup, I'd recommend the Godox V350, but if size and weight isn't a problem for you, then I'd recommend the Godox V860 Mark III. Try to avoid buying flashes that use AA batteries because these will have a lot less power, meaning you'll struggle to shoot several images at once. I'm now going to talk about how you should set up your flash and what settings to use. The first thing you want to do is set your flash to manual mode so you can have full control over your settings. Using manual mode on a flash also helps keep a consistent exposure when doing focus brackets. To get into manual mode, you press the mode button on the back of your flash until an M pops up on the back of your screen. Every flash is different, so check your manual if you're struggling to change modes. Once you're in manual mode, you'll see this fraction number here, and that is the power of your flash. The larger the number, the brighter the flash will be. But because these are fractions, that means 1/1 is the brightest power. And then typically most flashes go to 1/128, which is the lowest power on the flash. I try to go no brighter than 1/32 so I can have a fast recycle time. My advice for setting flash power is get it as low as possible so you can have a fast recycle time. And if you're setting your camera settings up and you still have a high power on your flash, you might have to bump your ISO up just a little bit so you can use a lower flash power. If you use very high powers such as full power or 1/2, your flash will likely overheat, buffer and potentially run out of battery. However, with the right flash and diffuser setup, you shouldn't have to go any brighter than 1/16 for most shots. So I would highly recommend investing in a good diffuser such as the Cygnus-Tech diffuser I have here. This number at the top here is the zoom. This determines how wide or narrow the light will spread outwards. A lower number is a wider spread of light, whereas a higher number is a more narrow, more focused spread of light. To change the zoom value, you simply press the zoom button on the back of your flash and then turn the dial to adjust the value. But again, every flash is different, so check your manual if you're struggling to change the zoom. Because I want my light to be nice and diffused, I have set this to the lowest number, which on my flash is 10mm. When using a flash and diffuser, it's important to have the zoom value set to the lowest number possible. This is so the diffuser uses as much light coming from the flash as possible. If you like to do macro photography at night time, then I'd highly recommend a flash with a modeling light. This is a constant light on the front of your flash that helps you visualize what the light will look like before you fire the flash. It's useful for macro photography at night because you can light up your subject to help set up your composition and to help adjust your focus. Not all flashes have a modeling light, but the Godox V860 Mark III I have here has one. And to turn it on, you simply press the modeling light on the back of your flash, and then you turn the dial to increase the brightness of your light. And again, every flash is different, so check your manual if you're struggling to turn on or adjust your modeling light. That's all the settings on the flash itself. I'm now going to talk about the camera settings you should configure to use with a flash. The first thing you want to do, and this sounds pretty obvious, but is turn the flash on in your camera's menus. When my flash is connected to my camera and turned on, there's an option in my menus to turn the flash off or fill in. If I select flash off, obviously the flash won't fire. If I select fill in, then the flash will fire and work normally. When you're using a flash, make sure to use a shutter speed no higher than the flash's sync speed. On my camera, the sync flash speed when using mechanical shutter is 1/250, and the flash sync speed when using electronic shutter is 1/100. If I go beyond those shutter speeds, my flash will be out of sync with my camera's shutter, meaning I'll get an image where I have black lines across the frame. However, it's perfectly fine to use any shutter speed slower than your camera's sync flash speed. Just be careful, as a lower shutter speed means more natural light coming into your sensor, and that means you'll increase the risk of getting motion blur in your images. My camera and a lot of other cameras will automatically stop you going beyond the sync flash speed when adjusting your shutter speed. But if your camera doesn't do this, you can find your camera's sync flash speed in your camera's manual. If you're using electronic shutter and the flash is not firing, there could be a couple reasons why. In your camera's menus, find silent shooting settings. On my camera, it's the first menu and 7th page. And there should be a setting to enable flash while using silent shutter. If this isn't the problem, then it might be because your flash only works with a certain drive mode. So have a play around with different drive modes and see which one triggers the flash. Typically on a lot of cameras, single shooting with silent shutter works, but sequential shooting with silent shutter doesn't work. On the topic of drive mode, if you notice your FPS is normal when using natural light, but slower when using a flash, there's a fix for that in the menus. Find the metering during sequential shooting in your camera's menus. On my camera, this is the first menu and fifth page, and turning this setting off should fix the problem. The reason your FPS slows down is because your camera is trying to work out the exposure for each shot after every shot is taken during sequential shooting. For my white balance, I like to use custom white balance and set the exact temperature for each shot. When using flash, 5400 Kelvin works most of the time, but if my white balance is slightly off, I don't worry too much because I shoot in RAW and I can correct it easily in post-processing. When shooting with flash, my exposure is usually quite dark because I'm using less natural light. This can make it quite hard to find your subject using the back of your screen or your viewfinder. If you're using a mirrorless camera such as the OM1 I've got here, then there's a setting in your camera's menus that makes it a lot easier to see what you're photographing. On my camera, go to the 6th menu and 3rd page, and here you will find live view mode. Go into this menu and change it from standard to SOVF. This will brighten your live view screen and viewfinder to make it seem more like an optical viewfinder found on DSLRs. And if you have a DSLR, you might have this feature, but if not, you can just use your optical viewfinder, which is what I did a lot when I used to shoot on my Canon 80D. You can easily switch from SOVF to standard if you program this function to a button on the back of your camera. On my camera, you can change button functions by going to the 6th menu and 1st page, then selecting button settings, and then selecting button function. I've programmed this function to the AF on button on the back of my camera because I don't use back button autofocus anyway. Depending on what setup you have, you might be able to use your flash with focus bracketing. When I'm using flash with focus bracketing on my camera, I like to set my charge time to 0 because my flash is very powerful and can keep up with the high FPS of my camera. If I'm using the flash power brighter than 1/32, then I might change my charge time, just so my flash doesn't miss any frames when focus bracketing. The flash recharge time depends on what flash you have and how fast you are shooting. If you're unsure of what charge time to select, do a few experiments at different flash powers to see if your flash can keep up with the high FPS of your camera. And as far as I know, that is everything you need to know about using a flash for macro photography. A quick reminder, all prints on my website are currently 20% off if you use code 20OFF. Link to my website is down below in the description. And as always, all the equipment I used in today's video will be linked down below in the description, and those are affiliate links, meaning if you buy through them, I'll get a small commission at no extra cost for you, which will help support the channel. But with that said and done, I'm going to end today's video here, so make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.